chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes! Echo down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange! 145!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage.
I'm leaving!
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening and welcome to NSF's live coverage of the Starlink Group 6-34 mission. Following a delay from yesterday, in just about 40 minutes, SpaceX will launch yet another batch of 23 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. I'm Trevor Sesnick, a writer and reporter here at NSF, and I'll be your host for today's mission. I see y'all already know the drill. I see all the 5x5s in chat. Thank you very much for that. Also, if you guys have any questions, make sure you tag us in chat with @NASASpaceflight, and your question will be added to our queue, and we may answer it for you. As always, I'm not alone on commentary. Joining me tonight is our very own, very knowledgeable Alex. Alex, how's your day going?
Well, it's been a bit quite busy for me, but yeah, it's been nice. Now we have a Falcon 9 flying again, because why not? Right? So many
Yeah.
Falcon 9 launches.
It's certainly not rare these days. And then also joining us on comms and bringing us these awesome live views is NASA Spaceflight's Chief of Bad Opinions, Max Evans. Max, how are you doing?
Wow, Trevor, you're gonna do me like that? Wow. Ooh, I felt that. Good evening, everybody. It has certainly been an interesting last few days here on the Space Coast between things happening or rather not happening here. But welcome to another, it's very cloudy and a bit breezy night on the Florida Space Coast.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second, but as you said, no Falcon Heavy is launched yet. Then finally in the background, Patrick Cahoon is pulling the levers, flipping the switches, so thank you to Patrick. Before we get started, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, in Europe it's December 13th, which is not only Taylor Swift's birthday, but also Alex's, so happy
Oh,
birthday,
God.
Alex.
Yeah, I was expecting 27 for 27. We were waiting on another double header today. Maybe we'll talk about a little bit later of what happened with Falcon Heavy, but yeah, it's my birthday.
Yeah. Could you tell us a bit about tonight's launch?
Yeah, sure. So we don't have 27 engines on this flight, but we do have 9 on the first stage of that booster. So we'll have another Starlink launch out of Cape Canaveral. And this one is going to be also 23 V2 mini satellites, the version 2 mini of the Starlink satellite. And they're going to go into a 43-degree inclination orbit, also to the southeast, just as usual. People normally ask about where is it going? If you see a Starlink from the Cape, 99% of the time is going to the southeast. There you have the trajectory right there. That is sort of the heading that it goes out from the Cape. And the Droneship will be located about 629 kilometers downrange. For this flight is going to be a Shortfall of Gravitas. And that is where the booster is going to be landing on for this flight. You can see there that Droneship leaving Port Canaveral just a few days ago. And so with that, the next thing that I should hit, I guess, is what is the booster that is landing on that Droneship? And that booster is B1081. It is a very young booster. It's launching for the 3rd time. You can see there a picture that Elon tweeted yesterday out there at the pad, and you can see it's not that sooty. It's just a little bit of a small layer of soot on top of it and a bit of charring here and there. But it's pretty much new. It's just the 3rd flight for this booster. It previously supported the Crew 7 and CRS-29 missions in the last 3 or 4 months. So I think I hit everything. Maybe we can hit another thing on the pad that we cannot see, but I guess we can do that later.
Yeah. One thing that we can't see is it seems very windy out there. Max, how's the weather?
I think it's safe to say windy windy, obviously. I was going to say iffy at best. Currently, there is a pretty thick overcasting cloud cover in our area. And we have a very strong wind blowing out from the northeast right now at about 20 to 25 knots peaking, which is right at Falcon 9's flight threshold, at least from Florida. But it's not raining. I can see some patches of clear sky where I can see stars. So not all is lost tonight, but I think we should still be in the green for liftoff. Cross your fingers.
Yeah, very exciting. And that lines up with, as Patrick is showing right now, the 45th Space Wing's weather forecast, where their primary concerns are liftoff winds, thick cloud layer rule, and the cumulus cloud rule. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, but most of the cloud rules are there would be concerned about a buildup of electric charge on the vehicle, which could cause lightning. Is that correct?
Yeah, and also maybe damage to components and things like that, because you're basically flying through droplets of water, and so there's sometimes even certain rules where it's like flying through precipitation and things like that. The problem is not rain itself; it's that water getting into places that it shouldn't be going to. Whereas when it is in the pad, they can take care of the rocket and things like that, right? And so it's a bit of a difference there of where the water gets to. But as you can see there, that is the probability of violation. That it means that you basically have to do 100 minus that to get what is the probability of favorable weather conditions. And right now, that is 65%. It is not a lot, but it is also not that bad. We have seen launches with way less probabilities of favorable conditions launching just fine. So yeah, we're probably gonna be fine.
Yeah, and SpaceX's website, just hard refreshing right now, it still says they are currently go for 11 p.m. local time. So they have launch windows if they do need to push the launch back a little bit, but as of right now, propellant load should be underway. With that, let's take some questions from chat. Since I introduced him, I have to let him, as the chief of bad opinions, I have to let him talk about it. Mark is asking, is there a stubby nozzle on tonight's launch?
Well, thank you for that wonderful title, Trevor. I will revel at that for a long time to come. No, there's currently the full-size Merlin vacuum engine nozzle on tonight's second stage. Given the weight of all 22 or 23, whichever they're flying, Starlink V2 mini satellites inside the fairings, the performance needed dictates that they need the full-size version of the nozzle on the Merlin vacuum engine. So they cannot afford to have that the loss of performance with the weight and performance needed in order to get these Starlink satellites where they need to go tonight.
Very good. And let's see. Looking at the chat, and it looks like we have a slight delay in launch. Is that correct, Alex?
Yeah, I just checked up on SpaceX's website. It appears we have a small, it's not a huge delay. It's only a few more minutes that we have to wait. Now the new T0 is 11:39 and 10 seconds p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it is the new T0 that we're basically now counting down instead of the previous one, which was 11:00 and 40 seconds p.m. Eastern. So this is the second T0 of the night, that 11:39, 10 p.m. Eastern. So they will still have another 6 on today. So let's hope that it is not far down the line, but definitely a small, compared to the length of the window, it is a 4-hour, 31-minute window. Just being 40 minutes of delay, it's not really that much.
Yeah, and we will stay live with you guys, so it'll be a bit longer of a hangout. If you guys, again, have questions, make sure you tag us in chat. I see a little bit of support here. Sedated Wee says, current Starlink users sound off in chat. I'm a residential user in a place is the best, and DSL is the best alternative option. This service rocks. Yeah, I think that's kind of, an interesting point that, right, Starlink is really meant for non-cities and kind of more of the residential rural areas. But it certainly is not cheap yet, but it's quite impressive what SpaceX has managed to do. And then that jeweler guy says, funny watching a Starlink launch on a Starlink connection, anyone else getting the new dish. And I think what they're referring to is the Starlink team have been through 3 different iterations of Dishy McDish phase. The first was the so-called Dishy McDish phase, and then they've slowly been simplifying the design. I believe it's now just a flat panel, correct?
I think the latest design that I saw was that it didn't have the whole orientation thing that you actually have to point it, but that might have been the cheapest option that they have right now. It's like one where it doesn't have the motors to steer itself and look at the optimal part of the sky or something. But it's a cheaper version, I think. But it's definitely better. It's getting cheaper and more accessible, and they have a lot of different sale options and rent options even. So I'm not sure though. I don't use it because I have fiber, so it's not for me. But I know a lot of people that have it because it is definitely very helpful for them.
Yeah, it's definitely not competitive with fiber yet. I'm really annoyed that in my area we don't have fiber, so we're stuck on some old school equivalent that's like not bad, but it's just annoying. So I guess we should probably get to the 27 engine elephant in the room. Uh, Demian Baby is asking, is there a reason why USSF 52 is now to be determined for its launch time? So could you just talk us through a little bit what's been going on with that mission? Alex?
Max. All right, so
Oh,
I'll.
I didn't know who that was
Yeah,
who that was directed to. My apologies.
exactly. I thought it was Max instead of me, but do you want to
Yeah,
take
I
it?
mean,
Take it.
sure. I'll take over the basics. So, of course, it is the 27 Merlin beast we know and love as the Falcon Heavy, and it is currently set to fly the Space Force and the Department of Defense's experimental and top secret, technically, X-37B space plane. It was supposed to fly 2 days ago at 8:14 p.m., but they have scrubbed both that attempt last night's and, of course, tonight's as well, and tomorrow's. So they're obviously having some sort of issue. I believe SpaceX said publicly on Twitter they were having some ground support equipment issues. That is yet to really be discussed in full detail, at least on our level. So we can't really talk too much about what that could be or what exactly it is. But currently, it's not looking too great if they cannot figure out or announce a new target launch date yet. So I mean, it could be a variety of things. It could be the rocket itself, but it could also be the ground support equipment used to
Yeah.
support the rocket. So, and of course, when you have one, if you're having problems with either, of course, the rocket is not leaving the ground. So,
Yeah, the latest from SpaceX says, word for word, is we are standing down for tomorrow's Falcon Heavy launch of USSF 52 to perform additional system checkouts. So basically, that means that they're still working on whatever made them stand down the other day. And then they say, we're also keeping an eye on the weather and will announce a new launch date once confirmed with the range. So there's another 2 factors to consider there. They not only have to figure out whatever they need to figure out, right, and fix it and whatever, right? But also, once they fix it, they need to look at the weather and see that it is good, and also they need to check with the range because there are a lot of other activities going on, not just Falcon 9, just like we're having today. We're having a Starlink launch, but also there's other things going on. For example, we had today the repeat of the wet dress rehearsal for Vulcan. So definitely a lot of activity at the Cape, and they need to consider that as well for the range to be able to approve the launch. So there's lots and lots of things. It's like a 4D kind of chess play kind of thing, right? It's really, really complex to manage, but at the end of the day, things get done, which is important.
yeah, it's been a very busy December here over on the Space Coast. It seems like.
Yeah, it definitely has. But I think this is already SpaceX's, is this fourth launch of the month already? Fifth launch of the month.
Yep.
And then, of course, Vulcan has been doing its wet dress rehearsal. So it's definitely been a busy time. Um, all right. Here's actually, in my opinion, a really interesting question because I did some math on this a while ago, but I think Alex would enjoy talking about it as well.
Hmm.
Merlino is asking how many countries, or like what percentage of the Earth's surface area, does this Starlink Group 6 orbit cover?
Oh boy. The group 6 is in a 43-degree inclination, so I guess I'm about 50% because it's 43. It's almost 45 degrees, right? A
I think
very,
it's
very
a bit more than that, but yeah.
well. I mean, if you count the whole of the world, okay, right. Boy, spheres are hard, but yeah, I will have to actually do the math, but you could probably approximate it to about a half of the surface of the world. But obviously, the people of the world, they mm, don't all live within 43 degrees south and 43 degrees north. Some of them, especially in the Western Hemisphere, you have a lot of people living more between 20 degrees north and maybe 50 degrees north, and so that's why they have another shell, which is the Group 5, where they have not Group 5, excuse me, Group 7, where they have satellites in a 53-degree inclination orbit, which, by the way, the next Vandenberg Starlink is also launching to that shell and carrying things extra on that one. We'll maybe touch about that later if we have time. I mean, we are 1 hour away from the launch, so we could probably talk about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the next Starlink launch will be pretty exciting, if my understanding is correct. Uh, I believe it's. So I did the math a few years ago for the 53-degree shell, and I believe that was on the order of 90% of Earth's surface, maybe a little bit
Hmm.
under that. Um, like Alex was saying, spheres are just really weird with the amount
Yeah,
of
because
area around
as
the
you get to the
equator.
poles, the surface shrinks down, and so it's probably more than 50% for 43 degrees. So don't really fully believe me because I will have to do the math. But as you can understand, I'm not able to do the math right now.
Yeah, we're not going to do calculus live on air.
There's
Um,
also just one little thing extra apart from that. There's also the point that the satellites are higher up, so you not only have the orbits going all the way to 43 degrees, but also the amount of landmass that they can see, the amount of surface, it's actually higher more north than that. So it's probably up to 45 or 46 degrees, for example, and then you have more of the surface that you can see with those satellites, which is important for coverage.
yeah, and then they also have the polar satellites, which they haven't launched too many of, but those will eventually give
Mm.
Starlink coverage of all of Earth's surface. Um, let's see, looking through chat for some more questions. Oh my gosh. Kevin Michael Reed, I don't know who this man is saying Ship 26 is the best ship, right?
No, you're wrong, Kevin.
Agreed. Yes. Ship
No,
26 gang. Let's go.
Oh my
good
gosh.
lord.
Thank you,
Um,
Kevin. It's. I think that might be one of the very few points that Kevin and I actually agree on.
and of course, it's a bad one.
Oh dear.
All right, Max, here's a question for you from Philip. He's asking, I'm going down to Florida for a week to see the first launch of Vulcan, Axiom 3, and the Nova C launch. Do you have any tips on how to see these launches?
Hmm.
Well, it's funny you say that because we may or may not have a video coming out very soon of how to see a rocket launch, but that's very exciting. Hopefully, you catch all three. I would say the biggest advice I can give to anyone that's coming to Florida to see a launch is plan as much as you can for scrubs and backups. You are not going to see a rocket launch. You are going to attempt to see a rocket launch. So let's see. For a majority of those views, I would recommend looking into Playa Linda Beach to get views of the pads, assuming they're still open during the hours of launch. If not, you can always hop over that way to get some really good pre-launch views of the rocket on the pad. Anywhere along US 1 in Titusville and or Port St. John will also work. And I would also recommend for an RTLS trajectory, anywhere in or around Port Canaveral or Cape Canaveral, such as Jetty Park, or even anywhere in Cocoa Beach. But I would also recommend it's just north of 528 in US 1. It is, I'm sorry, State 3, called Cars Park, KARS. I would do some research into all of those locations. Also looking to see if the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex is holding any special viewing opportunities for any of those missions. Because I know sometimes, even if the launch is not during normal operating hours, they will offer viewing from either the gantry or even the Saturn V Center here as well. So those would be my quick recommendations for you. Hopefully you catch all three, if not at least one or two.
It would certainly be better luck than I had when I went down to Florida once to hopefully there was 3 launches scheduled, 2 Falcon 9s and an Astra launch, and all 3 of them got pushed back. So hopefully you have better luck than me. Anyway, let's cover some support. As always, you guys just showing up to this stream, giving us likes, just being here means the world to us, and we're so thankful. And for those of you that choose to go above and beyond and purchase things from our store, become members and super chat, words can't express how thankful we are. So Steve with the $10 super chat saying, for gift buying of prints, when is the shipping cutoff? I'm not sure what you mean, but I think Adrian is around, so if he knows, he's the store man and will let me know in the back channel. Then that jeweler guy with a $5 super chat saying, yep, flat laydown panel is getting pre-released for certain customers. I just ordered. Got the round dish now, supposed to be faster than the new one. And I think he's referring to, we were talking earlier about the new Starlink terminal. The new one is flat, and the round one that he's talking about, I believe, is the version 1. Danny Parker says this week has been the most stressful week to take a trip down here. Yeah, you're not wrong. Launches have been moving left and right, but hopefully you at least get one launch tonight. Then Steve gifted 5 Red Team memberships, so thank you for that. And if you got one of those, make sure you thank Steve in chat. And then Jirwa gifted another 10 Red Team memberships. So thank you everyone for your support. And let's see, I see a bunch of arguments in chat that Jack has started about Hoppy versus Hopper and Stubby or not. I think Hoppy is fine, but I'm sure Jack will disagree with that.
Oh dear, here we go again.
Alright, let's go back to some useful questions instead of Hoppy versus Hopper.
It's Hoppy.
Oh my gosh.
Hoppy.
Matrix is asking, what percentage of Falcon 9's launch mass can be put into orbit? Seems like that would be a good way of measuring vehicle efficiency. So Alex, I remember Elon's talked about this before, especially when it comes to Starship. Do you by chance know these numbers off the top of your head?
Well, no, but I have a calculator in hand right now, so I'm pulling it out and calculating it just right now. So, we think that these Starlink launches may be able to launch about 17 tons to low Earth orbit. Let's round it down a little bit, be a bit conservative because it's good. And then the whole rocket, we think it is about 550 tons fully fueled. So that will be about 3.4% of the mass of the rocket is the capability to orbit. But that's with reusable first stage because you land it back on a barge. And so if you go with an expendable version, you will be able to throw, at least what a SpaceX says, you will be able to throw 23 tons to low Earth orbit, which will mean 4.6% of the mass of the rocket, will be the throw to orbit. You can basically do more.
Right, and what values are we expecting for Starship?
Oh boy. Well, you know how Falcon 9 is 550 tons fully fueled? Starship is about 10 times more. It's 5,000 tons. And yeah, so let's be again conservative with a Starship, right? Let's say it's 100 instead of 150. Then that will be 2% of the payload. But there's a catch there. You're using the first stage and you're using the second stage. And also I just said be conservative, 100. If you say 150, then you get to 3%, which is a little bit more in line with Falcon 9. And that's with a reusable second stage, which it's really nice. That you can sort of approximate to the same efficiency of Falcon 9 when you're reusing the second stage, because it takes the dry mass of all the flaps and all the reuse hardware and everything, and so that's nice.
Yeah, I think Elon talked about how Starship is going to be the most efficient vehicle in this metric, if you were to assume expending both stages, and that's what allows them to recover both the first stage and the second stage. But it would actually be really interesting to make a spreadsheet of what is the most efficient rocket in history with this metric. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Falcon 9. Let's see. Titan 3C in chat with the some math for Jack. With regular 10-inch slices of pure uncooked 100% ham bacon strips, it would take 275 pieces of bacon to match the height of Falcon 9 and 14.64 to match the width. I think Jack will probably go make a video about this now.
Yeah, now he needs to do one.
Yeah, come on, Jack. All right, let's. Two more pieces of support has come in. Paul Batraw with the $10 super chat with no comment. Thank you very much. And then Sedated We once with another membership. He became a Capcom member. So see you in our Discord and welcome. All right. So I guess now that we're about 50 minutes from launch, Alex, do you want to just go over again what we're expecting, assuming we don't see any more T0 slips?
Yeah, so basically some sort of recap to just make sure where we are. Yeah, it's again 23 Starlink V2 mini satellites launching on this Falcon 9, heading to a 43-degree inclination orbit as usual. And as I said before at the start of the stream, we usually get a lot of comments of where is this Starlink going to and where is it heading. My rule of thumb is if it's going from the Cape, it's going to the southeast. So that is pretty much what it usually does. It seems like they don't like to go to the northeast. Might be related with the flights coming from the northern coast of the United States, from the northeast coast, I guess. Of the United States, and so yeah, they do these launches always to the southeast. Other than that, we have a very new Falcon 9 booster here with just 2 flights under its belt, Crew 7 and CRS-29, launching for a third time on this flight and landing on a shortfall of Gravitas about 629 kilometers downrange. And other than that, and the many bad takes from Max, other than Hoppy, I guess I touch on most of the important stuff.
Yeah, and it looks like the important thing that Chad is discussing is once again Ship 26. Jack wants a
Bacon
pull of
and-
that. Oh my gosh. This is what you
Yeah.
guys get when you tune into these late night Starlink streams. Just all of us having a bit of fun. So
And that's why these late night Starlinks do be hitting different indeed.
that they do. So yeah, in about 10 minutes is when SpaceX will start conducting their go no go poll for propellant load. And at that point, we'll have a better idea of if this T0 is sticking or if they're going to push to a later T0. But as of right now, SpaceX website still says they are targeting 11:39 local time, and that is Eastern Standard Time. Alrighty. Oh boy, and the poll is now in chat. I will be voting Ship 26 bad. Max, what are you voting?
You guys are no fun. You guys are absolutely no fun at all. Obviously, stubby nozzle, great. It is functionally beautiful. And Ship 26 instead of Ship 28 flying for IFT3. That's my campaign slogan. Ship 26 for IFT3, please.
Oh boy. Let's hope that's not the case. Alright. So Conan Copeland is asking, when orbits degrade of these satellites, will they reuse the Starlink naming scheme, for example, launching Starlink Group 5-25 again? Alex?
That's
Probably not, right?
no, I don't think so. I thought they meant with a starship, which is also gonna be a very interesting naming scheme, I guess. Oh my God, Kevin.
Oh,
I s-
Kevin.
I saw that. But yeah, it's probably not gonna happen. I'm guessing they mean when they replenish the shells. I'm mostly sure that those replenishment launches are gonna be maybe named Group 9 something or Group 10, whatever. Like they're probably gonna make some kind of special group just to name those that are being replenished. And also, I believe the FCC has approved the replenishment of the old shells. I'm not sure though. I know that at least SpaceX asked earlier this year to be able to replenish the older shells with the new Starlink V2 mini satellites. So we're probably gonna have a lot of launches as well with those, maybe in the near future.
Yeah, so I guess that's an interesting thing to talk about, right? We saw the initial Starlink satellites, operational ones, started going up in November of 2019, so just over 4 years ago. And the most up-to-date information we have is that these satellites last on the order of 5 years. So have we seen any preparations from SpaceX to start refilling the very early Starlink shells aside from those FCC applications?
It doesn't look like it, but I will expect them to start that maybe next year. And maybe that whole increase in cadence might help, especially if they start doing what we talked on NSF Live this week, where we were mentioning the RTLS Starlinks maybe coming in the next few months, and maybe that's going to be the way that they reach 144 launches next year, where they do Droneship landings, RTLS landings, and so that way they can increase the cadence overall. That could be a way to replenish the constellation by doing more launches and being able to do all of that.
Um, so I think also on the note of more Falcon 9 launches next year, JVI Duo Tube is asking how many Falcon 9 boosters are currently in rotation. And I think this metric is a little bit harder to exactly say than it may seem. Right,
Mm.
Alex?
Yeah, there's a lot of boosters. I can count about 15 right now, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And yeah, about 15, 16. There's another one here. It's actually the one that is flying today. Wow. I have a list here in front of me right now of all the boosters, and yeah, it's about 16 boosters that are currently sort of active in quotes there. The thing is, they have 4 of them on the West Coast, and then the rest are here on the East Coast. And those that are on the East Coast, some of them may be reserved, some of them may not be reserved. It kind of depends. And then they also have their own way of, putting new boosters into rotation or putting boosters out of rotation to be able to inspect them more thoroughly and things like that. It kind of depends on what is the refurbishment life cycle for these boosters. For example, there's B1072, which is waiting right now for the first Cygnus flight on a Falcon 9, which is currently scheduled for January 29th from Slick 40. So that booster has been waiting for about a year and a half to fly, and it's not gonna fly until next month. And so, there's not a lot of boosters like that, but there's some of them. And then there's also B1082, which has been already tested at McGregor, and then B1083, which completed testing at McGregor just the other day, and it seems like they're going to be removing it from the stand really, really soon. So that's really interesting. But yeah, it's hard to actually put a metric on that precisely because of how fluid all of the fleet is. And I guess that's good because that means the whole thing is active and, more Falcon 9 launches.
Yeah, they certainly don't have a shortage. It's quite amazing what this vehicle is capable of, especially when you consider that, right, if they have on the order of 20 boosters, and each of those boosters can fly on the order of 20 times, that's 400 flights with just the vehicles they already have. That's pretty crazy. Let's see. Let's go back to some support. Snot Garden with a $20 super chat. Always appreciate your coverage. Expendable seems like a very expensive reef building project. That's honestly a good way of describing it. I haven't heard that before. Russell Troy became a Red Team member, so I hope you enjoy the perks you get alongside that. And then a Kevin Michael Reed, for some reason, giving us another super chat saying, in all caps, ship 26 good, the best ship. Starship to the moon. I don't know who this Kevin Michael Reed is, guy, but this other person, Jack Byers, seems to really disagree with him, saying, Kevin Michael Reed bad, ship 26 bad. And then a certain someone who is on stream, and Alex Physics said, Stubby bad, ship 26 bad, Hoppy good, West Coast, wrong coast.
There is just all kinds of triggering left and right happening tonight. It's hysterical. This is the best.
Yeah. And then, okay, people are wanting another controversial topic. Best shuttle. Max, what is the best shuttle?
Discovery, hands down, no question.
Discovery?
Discovery, absolutely. So Discovery's my number one.
I feel bad for you.
Since Max is always wrong, I'm gonna go ahead and say it's Endeavor, so we can get it off.
Good job, Alex.
Thanks.
You said Endeavor too, Trevor? Why? I'm curious.
Okay, my answer is like, I don't think I have good rationale for my answer. Endeavor wasn't my favorite shuttle until there was a Dragon spacecraft named Endeavor. I just think the lineage is really cool. That said, the best looking shuttle is absolutely Columbia.
Okay, can I give my reasons? Because I have a perfect switch here to.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So, Endeavor was the. Basically, you mentioned Discovery, right? Discovery launched Hubble. And the problem with Discovery is that it might have had some jinx on it or something. And so Hubble was launched not good, and it had to be repaired in orbit. And that was with Endeavor, right? And so, we actually have a video about that. See the segue? We actually have a video on the whole repair of the shuttle back in that mission. I frankly don't remember the mission, to be honest, because there's a lot of Endeavor missions. But there's one that I really do like. That is STS-88, which is also an anniversary this week, or more like last week, actually, which was the first flight to the ISS. It carried the Unity module to the ISS, and I love the ISS. So, there you go.
Max, now I
Valid.
think you need a rebuttal.
I would say Alex's points are very valid towards Endeavor. I will justify my reasoning behind Discovery in that it is currently, it will always remain the oldest in the fleet that has flown. It has the most flight time and the most experience and the most time in orbit, the most miles flown, and it flew both return to flight missions after both Challenger and Columbia. So those are my reasons.
I think at the end of the day, all of the shuttles are phenomenal. I think we can all agree on that.
Yes. Shuttle good. Shuttle good.
Shuttle good. And Patrick says the best shuttle was Enterprise. Patrick, why do you have to choose the one that never even went to orbit?
Oh my gosh! Yes, you put that on the ticker. Oh gosh.
Oh my gosh. All right. Oh my, Jack Byer in chat. Why is ship 26 bad? Jack, just look at it. that'll tell you all you need to know. Alright, back to some serious questions now that we're about 38 minutes away from launch, with SpaceX's website still saying that they're targeting 11:39 local. Let's go to Curveless Sphere's question of how long can Falcon Heavy stay on the pad before SpaceX might start considering a rollback, or will it just sit there as long as it takes? Do we know?
That's a good question because I guess there must be some kind of constraint, right? Because I've seen Falcon 9s on the pad sometimes for a week and not even flake or anything like it. Like they're just good there on the pad. But obviously, once you start having another two boosters and wind here and there, I don't really know if there's any sort of limit or something. But there might be somewhere, right? There must be at one point where it's like, no, we cannot keep it up there. And if it exists, we don't really know, to be honest. At this point, at least, we don't know.
The amount of time that it spends on the pad could also be very payload dependent.
Mhm.
I mean, if especially for the X-37B might be very time sensitive with some of its instruments or its engines or something on it, or on a classified mission, for example, there could be very time sensitive material on it, and also the environmental control unit inside, or the unit that supplies fresh air or air circulation inside the fairing might need some repair or some looking after. So it could also be very well payload dependent, but I don't think there's a set timeline for the actual rocket itself.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we don't know too much about what payloads are on board the X-37B. The only one that we're aware of is NASA's SEEDS mission, which is just a bunch of plant seeds that they want to be in the radiation of space to understand, what changes will be made to these for long-term trips to Mars or whatnot, which is, in my opinion, a pretty, honestly, kind of inspiring mission for such a classified mission. Here's another one for you, Max, from actually Curveless Sphere again. Is the new crew tower already in usable condition, and how long will it be until we see a crew launch from Slick 40?
I don't think we know an official answer to that, but what I can say is the big LR 11,000 series crane has just been completely disassembled. So I guess major construction of the tower is finished, both in the actual architecture itself and the crew access arm, which is great news. We don't know if they're going to clad it in the same black cladding material or finish that they have over at LC39A. But we may be seeing a crew fly on it sooner than we think, potentially in Q1, like very early Q1 of next year. That would be my prediction. Potentially, it could be Axiom 3 for all we know, or it could be Polaris, or it could be the next NASA crew mission. I guess we will have to wait and find out.
I believe there was some NASA documentation that pointed to it being Axiom 3. Is that the last we heard, Alex?
Yeah, so right now I believe they are trying to get Axiom 3 from here from Slick 40 in order to be able to leave a little bit of a space for LC39A to be able to support the launch of the Intuitive Machines 1 mission with the Nova C lander. And the reason is because they're going to be using methane loading onto the lander while during the countdown of the Falcon 9. And so it's going to be a bit interesting to see what they use. If if maybe all the Starship hardware has anything to do with that, or if they have any sort of dedicated consumables there for that mission. But definitely very, very interesting that we could see this pad in less than a month being used
Yeah,
for crew, I mean.
Yeah, it is remarkable how quickly SpaceX has assembled this, and with relatively little interruption to their launch cadence. They were still launching out of the pad about every 4 days when they built this entire tower. And more importantly, we just got an official tweet from SpaceX saying propellant load has begun for tonight's launch of 23 Starlink satellites. All systems and weather are currently go for launch. So that means no more T0 slips, and in 33 minutes, we will hopefully see this lift off.
Great news.
Yeah, always exciting. Okay, this is a cool comment because from another one of our team members, Sawyer, he, in our back channel, we always kind of joke around that he has flexes about everything in spaceflight. He just has met the coolest people and has had amazing opportunities, and it's awesome. So he was saying his logic for Endeavour being his favorite is on STS-127, Endeavour carried a patch of mine into space. STS-130 was the first launch I ever saw in person, also Endeavour, and I knew a few astronauts that flew on Endeavour. I think that's...
Of course, flexing.
Yeah. Sawyer, we love you. Alright. So I guess River Dave Kenny is asking how many landings have the drone ships endured? And I think that could be a good point to quickly just go over in case people are just joining us, since there was a delay to now. What are we seeing launch tonight, and where is it landing?
Well, the interesting thing is that answer has a very nice and round number. It's been 200 landings on drone ships. That is successful ones. Obviously, there's been 210 attempts. There's been 10 drone ship landings that have not gone according to plan. But yeah, today's launch is carrying 23 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. Again, the 43-degree inclination orbit, that is going to be the group 6. That is why it's Starlink 634. That means it is the mission 34 of group 6, but it doesn't mean that it is the 34th launch of group 6, because they skipped group 632 for some reason. So it's actually the 33rd launch of group 6. It's a bit confusing, but you know, it's a SpaceX. If it weren't confusing, then it wouldn't be a SpaceX. And apart from that, we also have a very young booster here. We have a booster on its 3rd flight. It previously supported Crew 7 and Cirrus 29. And just like the question is asking how many landings on drone ships. Well, this booster is landing on a drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas, and that'll be the 54th landing on a Shortfall of Gravitas out of 54, because actually it's being pretty much a 100% kind of successful landing percentage there on a Shortfall of Gravitas. It's being, I think it's the only one actually where all of the landing attempts on that drone ship have succeeded. So that's nice. And overall, then it will be the 201st drone ship landing if it succeeds. So let's knock on wood, it actually succeeds, and it will be the 180th consecutive since the last landing failure. It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. I believe it's one of 3 landing areas that SpaceX have with 100% success rate. ASOG, LZ4, and LZ2, which is pretty cool. Let's go over some support real quick. Maya C became a PADRAD member. Gary Sanchez also became a PADRAD member. Kenneth Cannon with a super chat saying, "Love all the shuttles, but Lego made Discovery his favorite." Yeah, the Lego set for Discovery is really cool. Lego did an amazing job with that. Paul with the $10 super chat, what shuttle docked to the Soviet Union, the Soviet space station Mir?
3. It was Atlantis, Endeavour, and Discovery. Atlantis did it the most, but all 3 docked. Columbia was actually the only one that didn't, but it wasn't able to actually go to Mir. So, well, that was a bit of a performance issue with Columbia being a bit heavy.
Yeah. And Rory Shields says, sophisticated, handsome gentlemen prefer Discovery. Max, how does that make you feel?
I have zero comment on that matter.
And then I'd rather be flying an X-Wing, a very regular on our stream, says Enterprise because the public had such a huge part in naming it. Yeah, it is cool when we're allowed to help out with those things. All right. Titan 3C has a question. Since Vulcan has been undergoing its wet dress rehearsal today, has Vulcan had its fairings equipped yet, or is it still missing them? Max, since you can see it, do we have any updates on Vulcan's fairings?
Not as of yet, I don't think officially. At the moment, the entire stack, the Centaur upper stage, of course, the core stage booster, and the two solid rocket motors are all at the pad without the fairings, and of course without the payload on it as well. The purpose of the wedge res rehearsal is to rehearse, of course, the countdown between all teams on console, and of course all systems on the rocket and on the launch pad itself too. And for that, for the purposes that ULA is going for, the payload is not needed. So currently, it is still headless horseman, I guess you could say.
Yeah, but it should get that soon, assuming today's wet dress rehearsal went well there. It seems like Tori Bruno has said that they're targeting early next year at this point for launch of Vulcan, which is very exciting.
I believe it is currently net January 8th for the first flight of Vulcan.
That's soon. Um, let's see. I guess quickly, November N939NN, I assume that's an airplane tail number or something like that, is asking what happened to not launching 24 hours prior to a big mission. And I think the important thing that we should state is there is no big mission happening in 24 hours now due to Falcon Heavy being delayed. So, Alex, do you think when SpaceX decided to try for tonight's launch, did they know that Falcon Heavy was already going to be delayed, or did the 24-hour rule get waived?
Well, there's two possibilities, or even three. I will guess. There's two main and maybe a side one, a third side one, and it is that perhaps they knew that they weren't gonna have enough time to be able to solve this issue with Falcon Heavy for tomorrow, and so that was sort of the reason why they probably got through. But that also might indicate, because if you put yourself in the position of the US Space Force, you also don't want to keep your launch provider standing down all of their launches, because it doesn't make sense at all if you know that at least that mission is going to be there has some chances of being delayed, right? Because of checkouts and things like that. So it could also be that the Space Force might have waived off the flight to happen either way, like, for SpaceX to continue the plans and things like that. Precisely because if it already had a low chance of completing all the checkouts or something like that, again, it's a very pure theory here that I'm throwing out, but it could be a side thing. And then the other part is that there's no such rule, and then we were sort of like just not thinking about that or anything like it. But I'm more skeptical of the no rule thing, because government customers are usually very picky about the whole data reviews and things like that, and especially both the military and NASA are very, into the whole team with the SpaceX and trying to go through all of the reviews and everything. They explain that when they have these sort of pre-launch conferences for CRS missions and crew missions, they go into details on all of that, and they make a big deal of that. So I'm gonna guess that it's probably a real thing. It's just that maybe there was a few exceptions here and there because of the exceptionality of the problem with Falcon Heavy.
Right. All right, I think I've seen another controversial question in chat that I think we need to go through. I'll start with you, Max. STS or Buran?
Easily STS. I'm not entirely anti-Buran because, in all honesty, what the Soviets were able to produce and pull off with their design of Buran, well, their design that was heavily inspired by ours, was very impressive. And that, on top of the Energia launch system, was absolutely phenomenal. And even though it only flew twice, it was spectacular. But that being said, STS all the way.
Alex?
Hmm. Well, I'm gonna vote for the shuttle only because it actually flew. But I think there were neat things about Buran. I mean, Buran did fly, but it was uncrewed and it was only once. It was for 2 orbits, I think it was, or something like that. It's the shuttle did way more things. But again, I think there were things of Buran that were nice.
Wow, so I think all of us agree on something. This is scary. Jay in our back channel saying, I don't think any of us would have jobs tomorrow if we say Buran over STS. Yeah, I don't think Chris would be happy with that. All right, let's go back to some questions about tonight's launch. Joe is asking, do more flight-proven boosters cause more flight delays, or is it unproven boosters that cause more delays? I don't really think there's a correlation between those two. At this point, SpaceX has a very good understanding of how all of their boosters behave, and it's honestly pretty rare that we see missions get delayed due to a hardware readiness of the booster.
I will actually argue that it's not the booster the one that gives problems. It's either the pad or the second stage. Not even the fairings, because now they're reusing the fairings, and now they don't seem to give a lot of problems either. They might give some problems maybe in processing, but at least on the launch side of things, we never hear about problems with fairings at least.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. The fairing program, I think, in general, is one of the things that SpaceX does that is not talked about enough, because it is truly remarkable how big of a success the program has been, and to say they're the first ones that have done it. Like, I believe on the order of 90 to 95% of fairings this year have been flight proven. And they've flown them up to, I believe, 13 times now, so it's not even that far behind boosters.
Yeah.
Quite remarkable. We have some more memberships. Coco gifted a Red Team membership. A certain Kevin Michael Reed gifted 10 Red Team memberships, and I actually got one of those, so thank you, Mr. Kevin Michael Reed, whoever you are. And then RC Horseman also gifted a Red Team membership, so if you got any of those, make sure to thank those people in chat. And then Dale upgraded to Launch Director, one of our highest levels of support, so thank you for not just supporting us, but supporting us on a regular basis. Now you'll get your name at the end of NSF Live. Let's see, I believe we are about 30 seconds away from what many consider to be the best vent. Max, what is this vent?
This vent is the launch teams and the launch systems purging the strongback, the transporter erector or strongback with liquid nitrogen to thermally condition the lines in preparation for second stage liquid oxygen loading. Because the last thing you want to do is flow super cold cryogenic propellant through lines that are still at or above potentially room temperature or atmospheric temperature, because then you'll get a whole bunch of prop flashing to a gas very quickly, and that could cause a whole bunch of issues in the hardware itself. So what you're about to see, and actually I think it's happening right now, right on cue, is a trail of nitrogen flowing out of the strongback.
Yeah, and this also gives a good indication of how windy it is today. You know, sometimes that vent just kind of stays there and falls down to the base of the vehicle, but today it is just being blown right away.
It's being blown completely sideways. It is very gusty out here tonight.
Yeah, has weather improved at all since the start of the window?
If anything, there's a bit less clouds, but we think we just heard some kind of advisory announced over at the KSC, potentially probably a gust or wind advisory. But that, of course, is not probably, I don't want to say effective, but I don't, because it's a different piece of property compared to Slick 40 and Cape Side. I don't believe the advisory carries over, so we should still be okay to continue.
Very good. Yeah, SpaceX did tweet about 20 minutes ago that weather is good for today's launch. And reminder that if SpaceX does have to scrub today due for any reasons, weather or hardware readiness or whatnot, they will be done for the day. And the next launch opportunity is tomorrow at roughly the same time. Or the window is the same with slightly different T0s. Alright, the big question in the house that we've been talking about a lot this month. Alex, how is the 100 launch goal looking?
Oh dear. It's not looking well. And the culprit might be on that Falcon Heavy that just delayed. And it is because previous to that delay, we were expecting the Falcon Heavy to go off basically this week. And then after that, a short-ish turnaround time to a Starlink launch, Starlink Group 6-35, that was planned for 39A later this month. And so that will have added an extra launch apart from the Falcon Heavy, and then that will have put them to 100 Falcon launches. The problem is, with that delay of Falcon Heavy, now it is looking very, very unlikely for them to be able to hit that extra launch from 39A, which means right now they will be able to do 99, but not 100. So yeah, that's a bit of a pity, but you know, it's how it goes. These things cannot be foreseen, obviously, and it's just a matter of solving them and try not to repeat them. And Falcon Heavy is a more complex vehicle, to be honest, and its GSC, it's also more complicated. It's rarely used. Like, you have all the GSC for the side boosters, for example, that is only being used. Heck, this is the 5th time this Falcon. So Falcon Heavy has launched 4 times this year. This is the 5th time, and there's that's not a lot of launches compared to Falcon 9. The GSC for Falcon 9 is much more well tested, let's say.
Yeah. And then it also didn't help, while not as big of a consequence, that this Falcon launch that is happening in about 16 minutes, right? It's already gotten pushed one day, which doesn't sound like a huge delay until you realize SpaceX needed to launch, 13 times? Is it 12 or 13 times this month? To reach their 100 launch goal. Anyway, you can see on screen now the T-minus 20-minute vent has stopped as expected. So now in the next few minutes, they will start loading liquid oxygen onto the second stage. And there's the timeline on screen where you can see where we are. Oh, it looks like it's not showing where we are, but yeah, T-minus 16 minutes, as it says, stage 2 LOX load begins.
Yeah. The other thing that I will also mention is that when we mean 100 launches, we mean what SpaceX counts, which is Falcon launches. That is Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. Now, Starship does count in my spreadsheet. I actually count them, but SpaceX sort of treats them as experimental, and so it's not going to the full tally of launches. You actually can see that when they tweet things like 91 on the last launch, and so yeah, if you count the 2 Starship launches, that it's 93 in total.
Yeah, so with Starship, it is looking like they will probably reach 100 this year. It'll be really tight, even still, but I think they count. But that's just my
And no, Falcon Heavy is not counted as 3 or 2 launches. It's 1 launch, because it's one vehicle that launches. Just like we don't count 3 with Delta IV Heavy or 4 with Soyuz. That would be silly.
Yeah. I see another interesting question about from Afterburner Flyby. How close to 100 booster landings this year? And we're at 93 currently, so tonight will be 94 this year. So with Falcon Heavy, that takes us to 96. So yeah, it's possible that they also reach, or they should reach 100 booster landings this year, which is quite remarkable. Let's see. Joseph is asking, what are the chances we will see another shuttle type vehicle? And I think the answer is we've kind of are gearing up to launch similar things, right, Alex?
Well, Chris B will say that Starship is what Shuttle wanted to be. uh, and so yeah, you will pretty much see something similar. Obviously, we hope much better in terms of the cost and the schedule and everything, right? But it's promising to be a very versatile vehicle where you can do not only flights with crew, also with cargo. You can bring back satellites, you can service satellites, you can go to the moon, and many more things than the shuttle could not do. So yeah, what are the chances we will ever see another shuttle type vehicle? Starship might be that kind of vehicle, but if you want something that lands on a runway, though, well, the X-37V is uncrewed that we know of, and so that kind of vehicle does not work, at least for people. But then you have Dream Chaser, and as far as I know, Sierra Space does actually plan to carry people on an upgraded version of Dream Chaser, which I think it is a DC 200 series or something like that. And I believe, Trevor, you actually went and saw Dream Chaser in person, so that's really cool. I'm totally
Yeah.
not jealous.
Yeah, no, I had the opportunity to see Tenacity right before it was shipped to NASA Armstrong. And it was honestly just remarkable to see a vehicle that's going to be at the ISS before too long. And it really did feel like just a mini space shuttle. It was Sierra Space is a very cool company, and I'm so excited to see that thing fly. Um, all right. Matrix is asking, could we ever see a dedicated Falcon Heavy launch site instead of switching between Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy? I think Falcon Heavy's launch cadence is just not high enough for that. Alright, they've only launched 5 this year, which is the most it's ever launched, or 4 this year, this will be the 5th. And it's only launched, I believe, 9 times. Or this will be its 9th flight. So I just don't think there's the demand for that when they could just convert the Falcon 9 pad. Let's see. And then Bob Chase is asking, why doesn't Falcon Heavy have its own transport erector instead of converting the Falcon 9-1 each time? What is SpaceX's reasoning behind that, Alex?
Well, one of the issues with that is that when you don't see a launch, so right now we're 11 minutes and a bit of a change from the launch of tonight's Falcon 9. And once it launches, what you will see is the stromback will go back up to vertical. They will work on the stromback. They will then bring it back horizontal, and then we'll keep working on the launch mount itself. Then the stromback goes up again, picks up the reaction frame, basically where the rocket is actually held down, and all of the booster connections for fueling and power and everything is located. And then the whole thing is rolled back to the hangar to integrate the rocket. But it's only that, and that only when that happens. So it is only when they're rolling back to integrate the rocket when they actually put the transporter back on the hangar. And so if you can imagine having a transporter for Falcon Heavy and another one for Falcon 9, that will mean you will probably need some sort of dual hangar kind of system where you have one transporter erector out on the pad, being serviced and things like that for the next launch, and then another one that is in a hangar and being taken care of. Like you don't kind of have that kind of a space with the setup that they have right now. I don't think they went with that in mind. You'll probably need a 2 hangar kind of deal, because right now the way that they set it up is a bit less than ideal for that kind of setup.
Right, and I think there's something else that could be less than ideal for tonight's launch. Max, you're saying the weather or the wind seem to be getting stronger?
Yeah, it seems that within the last 10 minutes or so, the winds have picked up noticeably. I mean, I think I mentioned earlier how I believe I heard an advisory alarm sound here at the Kennedy Space Center for wind gusts, and we have gotten word that Cape right now, at least the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, at least in the vicinity of Pad 40, winds are currently red. I believe the threshold for Falcon 9 is in the high 20s, potentially 28 or 29 knots. Falcon 9 itself is one of the rockets more vulnerable to high winds because of the way it's constructed, and of course its performance needed for landing. but right now I believe they're peaking above 35 knots right now, so not favorable. They could come down right around T's, and they could get off the ground. So there's really no telling yet. Um, but right now things are not looking the best, I have to say.
Yeah, and it looks like the winds at LC41, which again is not quite this pad, but it should be very similar. The 1 minute average at 230 feet is 25 knots, according to Patrick. So the launch is not delayed yet or scrubbed, but it certainly seems perhaps not the most ideal. But we'll be
Yeah,
here.
it's worth noting that apologies if I didn't make that clear. Yeah, launch has not been scrubbed. It has not been scrubbed to this point. The count is proceeding, but at the moment conditions are not looking the best. But they could change at the very last minute as they have done before. So I guess we will have to wait and find out.
Yeah, and this is very usual that we should add for SpaceX to, even if the weather is not looking good, they'll go right down to T minus a few seconds before they'll call the launch off. So as of right now, we are still good for launch in 7.5 or just over 7.5 minutes, but that could change based on weather. Let's go over a bit of support real quick. Clark became a Red Team member, so welcome to being a member of our channel. I hope you enjoy all of the exclusive content you get. Kenneth is asking, are Danger Van items in the NSF shop sold out? I actually am not sure. Did we get rid of that merch? Do either of you know?
Unfortunately not. I don't remember whether it's still up or not. That's an Adrian thing, I guess.
Yeah, sorry.
Adrian!
I don't remember either. And then Steve is saying, how many launches have either of you done live in 2023?
Oh dear.
A lot.
Yeah, I don't
Many.
know. Many
Many.
launches. And
Yeah.
then there's also Max who can actually see them with his own eyes.
That's true. I think I've to this point this year, I think I've only missed. I believe I've only missed 2 or 3 launches this year, which I think the count here in total I think is around 70 this year, which is I guess a pretty good ratio. But I still never like to miss one. But the most recent one that I did have to miss, I was in Starbase. So I guess there are worse places to be missing Falcon 9 from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that one.
And then Tom with another $5 super chat. And then Pat, the intern, became a launch director. So thank you very much for that very, very generous level of support. It really is what allows us to bring you these awesome live views. And with that, we are about 5 minutes and 50 seconds away from launch. So in the next few minutes, we'll see some events happen in fairly quick succession. Alex, could you walk us through what we expect to see?
Yeah, so right now we're approaching the final few minutes of the countdown here. The engines are being chilled down right now for operation later when they are ignited, so that the liquid oxygen is not blown off into bubbles that may cause cavitation in the pumps, for example, and that's a bad thing for the hardware rotating at super high speeds. And so right now that's underway. We have probably already have by now the wrap up of kerosene load on the first stage, which means all of the fuel has been already loaded on both stages, but we still have the oxidizer, the liquid oxygen. So liquid oxygen load will be wrapping up on the first stage and the second stage in the next few minutes. Also at the same time, the tanks will be pressurizing for a strong back retract. We'll see. Well, nowadays it's hard to see that strong back retracting from this point of view because the crew tower is in the way, but the stromback will retract a few degrees, about 1.8 degrees from the rocket, and that'll be able to just clear the way for when they actually throw back at liftoff. But yeah, that's pretty much the last few minutes of the count. Then at 1 minute, the ground computers will hand off the countdown control to the onboard computers on Falcon 9. That's when it is the startup sequence when it starts. And then a few seconds later, the launch director will be able to give the go or no go for launch today. Hopefully, it is a go.
Yeah, and with that, Max has to go away to watch this
Ah,
launch. So, Max, enjoy the 70th whatever launch from the Cape that you'll witness.
Yeah, thank you very much, gentlemen. I got to make sure nothing blows over here on top of mounting all of our cameras. So I will see you boys on the other side.
Yeah, thanks, Max. And there on screen is a view from SpaceX of tonight's launch, where we can get amazing views of that payload fairing, which is obviously seen a couple missions already, and then just the new crew access tower in general. With that, let's go over a few quick things before launch. Pat, the intern, okay, I think our panel is being rude. Anne, with a storm message saying Merry Christmas to my daughter, Jean. So, Merry Christmas to y'all and Happy Holidays. I guess that is coming up very soon. Let's see. Scott Girls is asking, why does X-37B need Falcon Heavy when Falcon 9 is capable of lifting it to low Earth orbit? And the quick answer to that is because it's not going to low Earth orbit. It's going to a pretty high inclination, high eccentricity orbit, probably a Molniya type orbit is what we believe it's going into. So that requires significantly more energy. Anyway, back to this launch today. We just had strong back retract start, and stage 1 pogo and stage 1 LOX load has been completed. So with that, we're about 2 minutes away from launch. Coming up, we should see another big vent from the TE. Alex, that big vent will be pretty similar to what we saw earlier, correct?
yeah. So right after they finished the liquid oxygen load on the second stage, they purged the lines to the second stage because obviously, if they actually go ahead and launch, obviously we're less than 2 minutes away from that, then they need to clear those lines in order to be able to not blow them off. Because the rocket goes very, very close to the strum bag at liftoff. Even though the strum bag retracts, they do this throwback maneuver at liftoff, it still is very, very close. And so the less residuals are on those umbilicals, that's better. And I just heard a call out that second stage LOX load is complete, and there you can see that vent coming off right on time, which means the full Falcon 9 is fully loaded.
And
we have an abort.
And there we have it. Tonight's launch has been aborted. The auto sequence for an abort has started, which means SpaceX teams will now begin safely removing all of the propellant they just loaded into the vehicle and transferring that back to the GSE tanks. We don't have any official word at this point of when SpaceX's next launch attempt is. However, we do know that they have a window open tomorrow at roughly the same time, which is probably when they'll try again. And Jack in our back channel with a happy Scrub-sember Deuterinos. It is that time of the year.
Well, not with that attitude.
Yeah, so we'll hang around for a bit more, wait to see if we get any more information. So Alex, what is the procedure that SpaceX does at this point when they've had a launch abort?
Well, right now, at this far in the stage, I was actually mentioning right when they called out the abort that the Falcon 9 was fully loaded. So now what they're going to do is do the opposite. Now they're going to unload the rocket and safe it and keep it in a safe condition and assess the situation. We don't really know what's going on, but as you can see, there's a lot of wind going on there. And one of the sort of concerns for this flight was precisely ground liftoff winds. So that might be one of the reasons that it could have aborted. Again, we had that spike of high winds, and so that is something that they might have been looking through.
Yeah, and just a reminder that the next launch opportunity opens tomorrow, December 13th at 11:07 p.m. Eastern Time. So with that, we'll just answer the remaining few questions that you guys have, and then I think we'll call it for tonight. Bob, or the DW Aviators asking, when do you think SpaceX will attempt center core recovery? I remember one of SpaceX's VPs recently tweeted about that, Alex. Do we have a rough timeline?
Yeah, so I believe John Edwards, which I think it's one of the vice presidents of Falcon stuff. I don't really know exactly his title. I'm sorry, John, if you're watching for some reason, right? But he's basically one of the big guys handling Falcon, and so he mentioned on Twitter a few months ago that they plan a center core recovery on a mission maybe next year. It is the launch of the Griffin lander by Astrobotic. Maybe it is next year, maybe it is the following one. And I say maybe because these sort of lunar lander missions are a bit, developing a new lander from scratch takes a bit of time, and sometimes the schedule's a little bit, yeah, they're not really set in stone.
Yeah. All right. A few more questions real quick. Jonathan is asking, will you follow Santa on December 24th? I think we'll all be following NSF Santa, which is Jack Byer with a dyed white beard and a Santa hat. But yeah, I hope, like we were saying earlier, Christmas is soon, and for those who don't celebrate, all of the holidays are soon, so happy holidays. Jim Cavett, another regular here on stream, with gifting a single Red Team membership. So thank you, Jim, for your continued support. And then Andrew became a Red Team member. And then the last question that we'll do for tonight, Modified 2T22 Siren is asking, what are your thoughts on Falcon 9 launching Cygnus? Do we know too much about that yet, Alex?
Well, we know that it's going to happen next month at least, or no earlier than next month on January 29th. But we don't really know what else are going to be things like, for example, late load with Cygnus or anything like it. Because by contract, they actually are required to do things like that, like late load and all that. But it's a SpaceX. They can figure out things, right? They built Starship, so I guess they can probably build something fancy into that fairing of them. And other than that, we don't really know what else is going to be happening. But that's the thing of seeing Northrop Grumman and SpaceX partnering with each other. That's interesting.
Yeah, and with that will conclude our launch coverage tonight for, well, the scrub coverage, I guess, for the Starlink Group 6-34 mission. We will definitely be back with you tomorrow for another launch attempt, and then if it gets pushed further, we'll definitely be here. And then we'll also be live on Thursday for the Starlink mission from Vandenberg. So thank you guys for tuning in. Max, thank you for bringing us these amazing live views and standing out there and just giving us all of your wonderful, insightful commentary.
Subtle dig there, Trevor. I like it. It's a pleasure as always, everybody. Despite the horrendous conditions tonight, it is always a pleasure being out here to bring everyone a view of the launches out here at the Cape and KFC. So we like it so much. We should try it again tomorrow. How about that?
Yeah, and we will be here. And Alex, on your own birthday, happy birthday again. Thank you for
No
taking the
candles for
time.
me.
Yeah, no
It's-
candles for you.
Anyway, well,
But thank you for joining us.
that was because we had a lot of wind blowing, so we wouldn't have had a lot of candles. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for having me, and it's always a pleasure. I have fun
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, and then in the background, we've had the one, the only Patrick Cahoon operating the live stream. So make sure you say thank you to Patrick as well. And then Gage was also prepared with camera support. And I've been your host, Trevor Sesnick, a writer here at NSF. And that'll do it for tonight, as Doss would say. Later, nerds. See you, everyone.
And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Probably not. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
off. Off.
It's orange!
45! Oh my god!
Decollage!
What do you think?
Put that in the big bag, you know.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You read? We don't need any more of these.